So one of my most frequently asked questions is, what's the difference between a long-term rental and a short-term rental? A short-term rental is a property that is being rented out for 6 months or less. A long-term property is a property that is being rented 6 months and a day or more. So mostly long-term rentals will do 7 months, 8 months, 9 months, 12 months, and even you can even do like 24 months. So it depends on what the owner preference and the tenant needs are. So what Changing Latitudes does is, that's our brokerage. We manage long-term rentals, but we also buy and sell with interested parties of short-term rentals. So we do know a little bit about both. Typically a short-term rental would be beneficial if you wanted some flexibility, if you wanted to use the home yourself and you wanted to have some tenants in there while you were not there. If you just wanted to stay there for a couple months or a couple weeks, a year, even a couple months, then that would be beneficial for you as an investor. But if you didn't want to use the property at all, then long-term management would probably benefit you a little bit more. The overhead expenses are a little higher with short-term rentals. You're going to have probably a higher HOA or a homeowners association, because you'll have more amenities that you'll need to pay for that are in the community, which you'll want because people will be attracted to that, because they're not going to go to the parks around here every day. So they'll want, a game room or an arcade or a nice pool to take the kids to, or just relax by. So that'll benefit you as a short-term rental owner. Another reason why people do short-term is they just like the hype. There's a lot of hype on that right now with Airbnb, VRBO. There's a lot of interest in it, and being that we're in Central Florida and we have Disney in our backyard, it's pretty beneficial. But you have to realize that as a short-term rental owner, you're essentially owning a hotel. So if the coffee pot breaks at 12 o'clock midnight and the tenants are complaining, where is the coffee pot, then you're gonna have to bring it, or you're gonna have to have somebody bring it as soon as possible, or you can risk having a bad review, which could totally kill your business. With long-term rentals, and typically I recommend long-term rentals. If you have never invested something before, I would recommend long-term, just because, they're two different animals. But long-term is a little less, you don't have to be too hands-on with that. You find a tenant and you pretty much know exactly what you're getting at the end of the month, unless there's a major maintenance issue. But typically you know exactly what you're getting at the end of the month. And then you'll have your tenants are qualified a little bit better. You have background checks, credit checks. With short-term rental tenants, you don't really do that stuff, especially if it's like a daily rental. Now you'll also you'll be able to get inside a little bit more. You can have inspections done for long-term rentals, but typically you don't want to bother your tenants too much, because they're going to get annoyed, and they're probably not going to renew for another year if you keep bothering them. But with short-term rentals, you'll be able to get inside and do maintenance yourself. Whereas long-term rentals, the maintenance is typically on the responsibility per the lease for your tenants, for the long-term tenants. So also, being that we are right next to Disney, a lot of people want to do this. So they think that they think that Orlando is where Disney is, and that's where they want to buy their property. Well, Orlando does not allow short-term rentals for an entire property. You have to live there for 50% of the home. You have to live in the home of 50% of the home, and then you can rent out a room. Whereas Osceola County, they don't have those restrictions. And Disney is actually in the Kissimmee area, so it's closer. Kissimmee and Davenport are typically where we usually do short-term rentals, just because there's less restrictions. But with short-term rentals, you do need some permits, and safety. There's more safety restrictions there as well. So I hope I answered some long-term versus short-term rental questions. If you have any more, just let me know and I'll answer them for you. Thanks. Bye-bye.